a brand new segment, Minutes with the Mayor. And as you can tell, the mayor decided not to. No, I'm kidding. She nominated Jeffrey Conte, who is the director of Public Works for Quincy, to stand in her place. Primarily, I'm assuming, I don't want to speak for her, but all the talk of the town currently is on the roads and the projects, right?
That is correct.
Okay, everyone is saying, we can't get around. Not me, of course. I don't complain ever.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yes, but so it goes from, it's kind of like a vicious cycle during the winter and early spring. People are, bitching about the roads, complaining about the potholes. We can't, and then you start construction. And then there's the other side. We can't get around.
Yeah, it's the price of progress.
Yes.
That's what we call it.
Price of progress. I like that. So welcome, I guess I should say, to our first ever Minutes with the Mayor, Jeffrey Conte.
Not the mayor. Not the mayor.
But I appreciate you coming because, as I said,
problem.
it is, it's kind of first in mind with a lot of people in Quincy. I mean, we know that there's a lot of other goings on, but this one seems to be the most easy to complain about, we'll say, right?
Well, it affects a lot of people.
Yes,
so,
yes, it does. So we were talking earlier regarding road construction. It does seem that there is a lot going on at one time.
Yes, there are a lot of impactful projects that are going on right now
Yes.
that really affect the traffic patterns across the city.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because you mentioned, of course, there are smaller projects, but the big five would be...
You got Harrison Street Bridge, which is under construction. We have Broadway, of course, which is affecting just everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
30th Street is being resurfaced. Then we got two projects that are not really in the city, but they're close and they will impact us, and that would be 48th and State.
Okay.
The county is getting ready to redo that. And then Hannibal. MoDOT is going to be shutting the Hannibal Bridge down.
Yes, the whole bridge. So right now, I think it's just a lane.
That's
right?
correct. Right now,
It's
they got to reduce to one lane, but starting on, I think it's the 20th of May, they will be shutting the bridge down totally.
And that impacts us because then Broadway, right? 104
Right.
will be...
So any traffic that wants to get into Missouri, that's say coming from Springfield area, will have to come all the way up to Quincy.
Yeah.
And they're going to be detouring traffic down Broadway.
Right.
Which, of course, we already have problems with
We
Broadway.
love that.
Yeah. So it's not ideal, let's just say the least. The timing is not good, but the bridge in Hannibal was scheduled for replacement of bearings.
Okay.
So it was a safety issue.
It is
had
safety,
had to get done.
Necessary, absolutely. And in Broadway, of course, that's one of our favorite things to complain about. It's typically like a state thing,
Well,
is
it
that
is.
right?
It's a state route.
Okay.
Yep. And it, of course, is in very poor shape, the surface.
Correct.
So it's been on something that the city has been asking IDOT to resurface for many years now.
Okay.
Last time it was done was, I think, 2010. So it's actually 15 years is not a real long time, but the surface has not held up well.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Which that's a discussion for another day. 'Cause
Another
I don't
day,
know
that's
all
right.
that stuff. But
Yep.
okay, so then let's talk about Broadway for a second, because
Yeah.
when the state is responsible for resurfacing or repairing, but we have kind of some infrastructure issues maybe underneath.
Correct.
How does that come into play? What's the partnership there
So we're responsible for everything under the
surface?
On the surface.
Yeah.
So the sewers, the water mains, those would be city responsibility. Normally, probably wouldn't be replacing them, except for these water mains are from the 1800s.
A little old.
Yeah, so they have exceeded their life expectancy, and certainly we wouldn't expect them to go another 25 years or so, which is what you would normally think for between a resurfacing. So we would
Okay.
think sometime in that period of time you're going to have major failures, and we don't want to be digging that up.
Right.
The other thing is that because of the way they do the construction, they use what's called a vibratory roller, which is they use big steel rolling machines. They also import a vibration to help compact the asphalt.
Okay.
Well, you do that on pipes that are 150 years old, and they tend to break. So we don't want to be in a situation where they're out there paving, and then our main's breaking.
Yeah.
And we've got to tear up the brand new construction. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's exactly what would happen.
Yes.
So
So there is a plan in place.
there is a plan. We're replacing the water mains from 12th Street right now out to 30th.
Okay.
So that should be done, we think, by November.
Okay.
And then IDOT will start, they're actually probably start construction September or October-ish, but they'll be working on doing the intersections first, so the concrete redoing the curbs and accessible ramps and that kind of stuff. So they won't actually do any paving probably till next year, probably
Gotcha.
next spring.
Gotcha. And then 12th Street it's always been kind of one of my least favorite intersections, possibly even just because trying to turn is very tight, right? And
It
then
is, yep.
the safety of the crosswalks. And
Yep.
so I am very much about progress in these areas. I will also admit that I am one who complains
Sure.
about getting around, but it is, it's one of those things where, yes, you can complain that you want it done, and then you can also complain that it's a pain in the butt,
Yeah.
because it's such is life.
It is,
Right?
yeah.
So when we're talking about road construction, let's talk about even repaving, repairing, any of the above. How are you deciding what projects to start, when, what the timeline looks like? So I know if I'm looking on, let's just say I chat GPT'd like what construction projects and how long it was slated to take and what the expected cost was. And I know that it kind of scours the internet for all of this information. But if you had to, I know there's no typical repair or resurfacing project, but do you put a kind of a general timeline or an arbitrary number on those just to kind of get yourself in a planning phase?
Yes.
Or how does
so,
that work?
So we
Okay.
plan years in advance. We make a list of all the street work that needs to be done, and we look at other factors that go into it. Water main replacement being one of them.
Okay.
Sewer repairs. So we kind of make a very long list, and then we try and break them out, and we try and put them into a 5-year schedule.
Okay.
And that, of course, we update all the time. And some projects that are on the 5-year schedule might not get done.
They get pushed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that.
That's like Broadway, for example. Broadway's been on the 5-year plan for IDOT since I've been at the city, which is 12 years.
Okay.
So it should have been done 7 years ago,
Yes.
technically, but it's
Yeah.
just getting done now. So it's a matter of making a list, making priorities, looking at what other impacts there'll be by doing that construction project, trying to keep stuff from not like what we have right now, where we have 5 projects going on at once.
Right.
You like to spread those out so that
Sure.
they don't impact each other. It doesn't always work out, but that's kind of that's the way we plan for
Okay.
stuff.
So then when you're kicking off, let's say when you kicked off these 5 projects, and I'm not dogging on you, I hope this doesn't sound like it, but when you're kicking off these 5 projects, what happened that made you say, we're going to do all of these at this time?
Each one kind of has its own
It's its own animal.
yeah.
Okay.
So like Broadway, for example, we knew we had to replace the water main at
Sure,
the
sure.
same time. Really, it was a funding issue. So that's going to be like a $7 million project.
Okay.
So we kind of put it off until really.
Hour.
Because what we need to do is, so when we dig this up, we have to put a patch in.
Okay.
Okay, so all the surfaces, everywhere we're digging is going to have a patch on it. We didn't want to have patches for 2 or 3 years on Broadway. So we tried to really wait until we knew that IDOT was going to move forward with
Okay.
resurfacing. So that kind of held
makes
that
sense
project,
there.
plus the funding, because it is
Sure.
such a large project. And then the other ones like Harrison Bridge, I mean, we've known it's had some structural issues.
Safety issues.
And we're waiting for the funding, because that's a bridge project, so there's a special funding mechanism for it.
Okay.
So the timing just worked out that this is when it is.
This is when it is.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
North 30th Street, we got lucky. We had some money available, and 30th Street gets a lot of traffic, and
Yes.
it was in really bad
It was
shape.
very poor shape.
So we just said, let's go for it. Let's see if we can get this done before the other projects.
Gotcha. Sometimes, again, they get pushed out.
They got pushed out
I
a
get
little
it.
longer, but
So sometimes it's not it's not planned. It just happens to work out like this,
Yes.
and we all just have to grin and bear it.
Yep.
Which I totally understand. And of course, you're still going to have people, maybe me sometimes, who complain about getting around, but it is what it is. But then when you travel down, like South 18th Street, and you see that beautifully paved road, and then you're like, oh, okay. The eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the
Yeah.
prize, because eventually we will have more roads like this,
Yep.
right?
That's right.
And then, of course, it's a vicious cycle. We'll have more that need work. And
Yep.
yes, so it's never ending. Speaking of never ending, of course, I want to touch on another thing that everybody's always talking about, and that is potholes. And I will not make you answer to the pothole plan that the mayor has so bravely signed her name to.
Yes.
But is there a criteria for filling those that you know of, or how do you get involved with that?
well, she said all the potholes. And
All of them.
So everyone we're going
Okay.
to fill.
All right.
So
And there's too many to count.
there's too many to count.
Bob wanted me to ask what the tally was on how many
I
have
don't
been
enough
fixed.
fingers or toes for
Yes.
that. So
But you are fixing.
yes, so we're doing a grid essentially. So we're
Okay.
we're just going up and down every block and
Perfect.
filling every pothole on that block.
Okay.
And now we're not doing it the way we used to, or the way we've been doing it the last few years. It's just where we cut it out, we put the tack coat down. Those pothole repairs last much longer than
Okay.
what we're doing. Right now we're trying to get caught up.
Sure.
It's what the mayor wants to do. So
Yeah.
we're going to fill all those potholes. Some of them will pop out in 3-4 months, and we'll have to go back and do them again. But
Okay.
it's trying to get it under control.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we are way behind.
Try to get our heads above
Yeah.
water when it comes to that, and then hopefully we'll be in a better position where we can look at expense versus long-term fix. And
Exactly.
so I appreciate the strategy there.
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody who tosses their hat in the ring to be accountable for this stuff. I know it's not easy. I appreciate you coming on and being my first guest on Minutes with the Mayor because in the future, this is kind of the hope, is that we sit down and talk about not only what's going on in the city, of course, what's kind of weighing heavily on the citizens of Quincy, but also what's going on in the city council, the administration,
Yep.
kind of bringing some transparency and giving people another channel to access some of this stuff if they're not privy to the city council meetings or what's going on. So that's the hope, and I appreciate you coming on and chatting
Thanks for
about
having me.
this. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And good luck with all of the all of the repairs, all
Yep.
of the resurfacing. I know you have your hands full, but we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. All right. That does it for our Minutes with the Mayor.